Children must be banned from receiving irreversible gender-altering hormones, a legal challenge to the Health Secretary has stated. In December last year, Mr Streeting banned puberty blockers, but refused to also ban cross-sex hormones, both of which last year's CAS review found there is remarkably weak evidence to support the use of in children with gender dysphoria. The legal fight is being led by Keira Bell, who won a landmark case against the Tavistock clinic through which she began experimental treatment as a teenager. Keira says she was failed by the NHS, who didn't challenge her before making what she called a life-altering mistake at such a young age. Keira joins me now in the studio. Keira Bell, detransitioner and activist. Keira, perhaps it's a good place to start with you telling me your experience, what you're trying to achieve with your case, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so I went through the Tavistock GID system from the age of 16, and after about 4 appointments, I was prescribed puberty blockers, and a year later I also was put on to testosterone. I also proceeded with a double mastectomy through the adult clinic about a year later, a couple of years later, when I was 20. And at the age of 22, I figured that I matured and realised that there was a lot more going on, and there was a lot that was missed, and to essentially stop the hormones and just continue living as I am. So I took upon the judicial review against Tavistock GIDS to challenge the idea that an under 18 could consent to treatment, to puberty blockers, or to puberty blockers specifically. So we know that there's been a ban since on the puberty blockers, or substantial barriers have been put in place, and so this new case is to challenge the idea that under 18s can, or to put those barriers in place for cross-sex hormones as well.
So the Health Secretary obviously said he was coming up quite strong on this when they first got into office. He was banning puberty blockers. How did this cross-sex hormone therapy get missed in that? I know the CAS review had looked into it, but how do you think the government have missed this? Is it some sort of, just failure of evidence, perhaps? And what would you say to those people that are thinking about going through this process before they get started?
Well, I think it did get missed, and I'd imagine that's due to the obfuscation of everything that's going on, and it's kind of a lot of the lobby groups that are involved tend to confuse things, and I think for someone coming into this, I'm not sure on Wes's knowledge on this area, but there's so much going on that I think it's quite easy to miss. But yeah, it's important because these drugs are, if not just as dangerous, then they're even more dangerous. So it's important, it's imperative that children are protected.
So there's some of these are being prescribed potentially to under 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
How are those under 18-year-olds getting that sort of prescription, and how is it going through parents? Are they able to go by themselves? What sort of advice or parental guidance do they need to do this?
Cross-sex hormones. I believe they have to apply for some sort of court injunction, and they have to go through a multidisciplinary team,
right.
A national team. So they have to jump through a lot of hoops, I believe, but it's still possible.
Yeah. And can they do that by themselves, or do they need their parents to help them do that?
No, sorry. What I just mentioned, I was referring to puberty blockers, but with cross-sex hormones, they can acquire that anywhere, really. I mean, right. Especially now with the introduction of private clinics. Yeah.
So these private clinics, obviously, I'm not suggesting that you know any of them in particular, or that you want to talk about those specifically. But they're going after or helping under 18s. Do you not think they have a responsibility to ask parents? Is this a money-making? Did they make money out of this by helping young people do this?
Yeah, you would have thought they'd need to have the parents involved at least. But this is completely unregulated. I believe some of them are using AI now to diagnose and treat these children essentially. So it's the wild, wild west, and nothing's been done about it.
That's quite incredible, and I think a lot of parents at home will be really worried about that. What sort of things, coming from your background and from what you've gone through, what sort of things should parents look out for in their own children? Because a lot of people will be worried, saying, what if my kid's doing this and I don't know? How can they intervene, and what would we advise the best practice be?
How would they spot it? I mean, I'm not sure. I think I feel like a lot of people, a lot of children and young people that identify as trans these days, they're usually very proud and out about it. But especially for women, taking testosterone, you're going to know pretty quickly if that's happening. So I think it's just important for the parent to remain as close as possible to their child and be able to speak with them openly.
Keira, thank you so much for coming. It's very brave to talk to us today, and best of luck with your case as well. I'm sure we're following it closely here. Well, a Department of Health and Social Care spokesman had this to say: "We continue to work with NHS England to implement the full recommendations from Dr. Cass's review. We welcome the additional safeguards that the NHS England is putting in place and recommended by Dr. Cass to oversee the use of cross-sex hormones, including strengthened oversight from national clinicians."